Right, hi everyone. We're back after a long hiatus, and we're here to talk about exam technique in the GCSE Business Edexcel course. So we're going to do a series of videos covering all the different types of questions. This one is just going to be an introduction to what to expect from a GCSE business assessment. We're going to talk about the assessment objectives, and then we're going to have some other videos that are going to follow involving short answer questions and then the long answer questions like the 6, 9 and 12 markers. So this one is all about the assessment objectives and the structure. What should you expect when you open a GCSE business paper? So in GCSE business, we have 3 assessment objectives. And in our answers, we've got to try and demonstrate these certain skills. So your teachers might have told you about assessment objectives. An assessment objective is just one of those key skills that you have to demonstrate in your work. It's probably going to be a similar set of skills for any course that you're doing, whether it's business or sociology or English or maths or whatever. These are the 4 kind of assessment objectives for business. It's actually 3, but the third one is split into 2 different categories. So we're going to go through knowledge, application, analysis, and evaluation. So, Mike, do you want to start with knowledge?
Yeah, so knowledge is the first assessment objective, the lowest level assessment objective. So it's all about how you demonstrate knowledge and understanding more so of business concepts and issues. And we've got some kind of key tips regarding knowledge. So it doesn't have to be definitions. Some teachers like to use definitions, but I would suggest to avoid them. You're going to get the understanding marks for confident use of key terminology throughout your answers and just making relevant points that link to the actual question that's being asked. So you're showing inherent understanding, implied understanding.
So the second skill is application, and this is where, this is really, really important in business because studying GCSE business and just studying all the theories is half the battle. It's all about applying to these business examples, and so that is what application is about. Can you apply the knowledge that Mike's just talked about, the understanding you have of all those business concepts and your key terminologies and what have you, to different examples of businesses? And so this is where we're going to use case studies and what have you that you'll see plenty of in the next few videos. So using quotes from the extract, showing an understanding of maybe the market that a business is in, whatever that business does, basically. And the key thing with this is it can't be superficial. So for example, if you have a question about Tesco, just using the word Tesco, that's not application. It has to be something that is kind of unique to that business in particular.
Right, so analysis is the third assessment objective. So it's all about demonstrating understanding of business activity, and it's about developing points and showing potential causes and consequences. So you're going to be looking to create chains of analysis. So some teachers will mention like BLT because leads to therefore to actually develop points. A key thing that's raised a lot of my students' grades has been to avoid being assertive. So instead of saying, for example, an advertising campaign will lead to more customers buying, which will lead to more sales, you could say an advertising campaign would likely lead to more customers and therefore more sales. Because, for example, an advertising campaign may not be effective and therefore it may not lead to much in the way of more sales. Like I already mentioned, the because leads to therefore, and then we want to avoid the generic statements such as this leads to more sales and more profit, which has become a bit of a meme I know on TikTok of people saying business is easy. So we need to look at ways to avoid doing that, mix it up a little bit. So for example, a lot of my students like to use it provides more added value, which will then enable the business to increase the price and make higher profit margins. That would be a much better answer than more sales, more profit.
Yeah, otherwise you could just do that on every single question, couldn't you, really?
Indeed.
More sales or less sales, more profit, less profit. So yeah, avoiding those generic statements. So the final skill is evaluation, which is also AO3, but AO3B technically. I wouldn't worry too much about that if I were you. The key thing is just understanding what evaluation means. You only need evaluation on certain questions. So evaluation's 2 parts. There's providing balance, and we'll talk about that more when we do the 9 and 12 markers. And then there's the kind of the main bit is coming to those justified conclusions. So the key thing with evaluation is if you're just focused on positives, you're not evaluating. So for example, if you in a 9 marker do 2 positives, that's not evaluation. Evaluation is doing a positive and a negative. You only need this in 9 and 12 markers. You'll see this more in our 9 and 12 marker videos that will be coming soon. So when it comes to evaluation, use balance. In terms of conclusions, make a clear decision and then provide justification. One of the biggest frustrations, a student writes a beautiful essay and then in their final conclusion say, oh, it could be either. That's not making a decision. Make a clear decision and then provide some justification. And when you're doing that justification, you can use it depends on points or short and long-term points to try and get that higher level evaluation. You'll see some examples of this when we talk about the 12 marker in the last video in this series. Now, what types of questions will come up in GCSE Business? So the paper is split into 3 sections, Section A, Section B and Section C. And as you can see from what's on the screen, Section A is worth the most marks, but is definitely the easier of the 3. And then Section B is worth 30 marks, Section C is worth 25 marks. There's a range of different types of questions that you're going to get here. Just to kind of give a very brief summary, Section A is all going to be short answer questions except for 1 6 marker. Section B is going to be a little bit more of a combination between short and long answer questions, a few 1 and 2 markers, but mainly those 6 mark analysed questions and that 1 9 mark question. And then Section C is, for the most part, 2 long answer questions. So there's a couple of short answer questions, 4 marks worth of those, but then it's going to be that 9 marker and that 12 marker.
Yeah, so basically, obviously you're going to be looking to spend the most time in Section A. There's no case study, you're not using any examples. Some teachers sometimes mention you can use examples if it helps you to answer the question, if you're struggling to explain, for example, a benefit of a franchise and you want to mention McDonald's and a menu, but you don't have to. It is the easier section, but because of that, I tend to find students spend far too long in this section. So, be mindful of that. Section B and Section C is when it really starts to ramp up. This is where a lot of students' marks will start to drop away, either because of time constraint, because they spent too long on Section A, or because they're not in application mode. So you almost have to get to the end of Section A and do a reset, a hard reset, and then think, right, I'm applying everything to a case study. We've got many more, I should say, longer answer questions. So you can get a little bit of writing fatigue, etc. So yeah, a reset, deep breath, away we go. And as Jack said, in these sections, Section B and C, you have the 9s and 12s, which are level based, which means you can pick up marks quite quickly through levels if you're struggling for time. But that's where a lot, as I said, fall down because they can only do very surface level answers, or they don't get to do a conclusion, for example. And like I've said, B and C have a case study, hard reset, make sure you're focusing on the case study. Far too many students do Section A and then they start writing very generic answers in Section B and C, so just be mindful of that.
So at the end of Year 11, you will do 2 exams, and these are split by the 2 themes. So Paper 1 is going to cover Theme 1, so focus on small businesses, so the units that you do in Theme 1, and then Paper 2 is going to cover Theme 2, so that's about how businesses are expanding and growing into bigger companies. And I think it's fair to say that there's more key terminology in Paper 2. Now, it goes without saying that as you study this course, you'll be able to use some information from Theme 1 in Theme 2. You'll be able to use some of the information from Theme 2 in Theme 1. But just make sure that you're on top of your key terminology, because it's certainly trickier. There's a lot more specific key terms in Theme 2. So to help with that, there are some Quizlet links for Theme 1 and Theme 2, which I will put in the description of this video. And the only thing worth mentioning is that the exams are 1 hour and 45 minutes long. So if you're looking at a past paper and you see that a past paper says it's 1 hour 30 minutes, the length of the time of the papers has been changed. It has been updated. So you do have a little bit more time, 5 minutes on each section, to get those questions done. So just make sure you're focused on your timing. Make sure you don't spend too much time on Section A, because obviously those long answer questions towards the end of the paper are really, really important. Keep an eye on the channel. There's going to be other videos on short answer questions, on 6 markers, on 9 markers, and on 12 markers. So have a look at those. And obviously, if you've got any questions, let us know in the comments. And we'll see you soon.